UFO meetup. It's October the 18th, 2020. Our guest, Jeff Selver, is on for his fourth video. This talk is called What Was the Rising? So Jeff, welcome back. We're looking forward to your PowerPoint presentation.
Thank you. Thank you, Brian. Thank you for having me. Again, thank you, Mimi. And just thanks everybody for being here. I'm actually really anxious. This story is about to get really personal, and so it's pushing my boundaries to talk about it, but it's kind of time in my life to share some parts of the story that were always a part of my life and had no knowledge that were tied to aliens. And so I'm telling that story today, and it's personal. Yeah, that's pretty much it. This is what I wanted to call the actual presentation today, but I don't want to draw attention. So I really appreciate everybody, like Barry, Zach, JD. Actually appreciate you being here as well too. Brian, of course, Ian, people who know the story, who are listening to my story. It's just, again, I tell my wife, like, this is therapy. She gives me some social work background about why this is actually how this like makes me move through the emotions by talking about these experiences. And so I'm really grateful that people listen to this. It's a real story, but it's a weird twist. I want people to know about it. At the same time, it's so personal that I get a little bit too anxious to kind of give it out there too far. So today I was anxious about that. The story will get deeply personal, and you will see very clearly why it'll get personal. And so I didn't want a lot of people to show up. I might make a different decision for the video, but so this was the title I actually wanted to make the video: How I Learned Gray Aliens Want Earth to Be Part of a Federation of Planets. So who knows? I mean, I'll make that the title for the video. So welcome, my name is Jeff, and I have some alien contact events that I need to talk about. Today it gets personal. Thank you very much for listening. What's happening tonight? I have a new sighting, actually, just most of all, really exciting. As I always love to share these experiences. I actually had a new sighting. I sent the videos to Ian right away, and then Brian, I emailed you also the same night that it occurred, just trying to share it with people that the sighting happened. Happened right outside my apartment. I got the videos, and I'll be sharing those videos. Part of what some people have been talking about in these videos in response to myself was how I have the level of detail in my memories. And I actually have some answers to why I know I have these level of details with these beings and my experiences. So I'm going to open up and talk about that as well too for a portion there. And we'll do a recap of where we've been. This will be the 6th contact event, which occurred in Coquitlam, early September 1997, and I was 20 years old. There'll be a bit of reflection on that. Contact event number 7, Port Moody, November 1997, 20 years old. Reflection on that, and then I'm jumping into this big personal story. What was the rising? Oh, and I'm doing a Q&A, so we'll have a Q&A at the end, but someone emailed me, and I really wanted to. I found that it's a little bit about, the Greys have this really bad reputation, and it was really kind of a good email written out about some of the details about these bad experiences that the Greys seem to give people, and it was kind of laid on me, like, what do you think about all this? So I thought it was really a good opportunity to, or maybe it was just easier to actually talk it out versus kind of put it all into an email. So I thought it'd be a good opportunity to read that email tonight during the Q&A and answer over the Q&A. So yeah, that'll happen too. So let's do it. My new sighting, pretty crazy. I don't know what to tell you. It's the same style, the red orbs, these red balls of light that kind of just show up. I don't know how to explain it. Basically, this thing that, let's back up here. So here, it pulls the same maneuvers it did the last video I showed. I have another video, JD and whoever else watches this, if I record it. I actually have another sighting, and I give a lot of detail on my other videos. It's the same kind of maneuvers where it kind of comes out of almost seemingly nowhere, or just the ground or something. I know this area, and there's no helicopter pads or even an airport there. It seems to kind of come out of the ground comes up at an angle and hovers and stays stationary and disappears. In both cases, there's two. This is the first one. And this is just outside my apartment, and I was able to film it and captured it on film. It's the same red craft, deep red craft at the time. That I've increased the contrast so I can look at this kind of clearly. Seems uneventful. It's really gentle. It does just disappear, but when it does, you'll notice, just watch above here as well too. Yeah, you can see it. There it is there. Watch this guy come up. So that just shows up out of nowhere too. And then just gone and just disappears. That was October 6th. That was a Thursday, I think 8:49 p.m. And then I was like, whoa, my God, kind of staring at it, watching it. Then another one, 11 minutes later, just out of nowhere. And I was like, again, and I just started filming. Bit of distance, but it's these red balls of light, red orbs. The last time I got to film them, what was obvious is that I'd given my draft of my book to coworkers, and then the night before I was going to go talk about the draft with them, I saw these red balls of light. So as if it seemed connected. It seemed like they were very aware that I was writing this book and writing out my contact events. And this day, if there was any connection about what happened on this day that I was filming, I was upset, actually. I was actually emotional because I find writing this a bit hard, and I maybe sometimes I feel discouraged from putting this information out there, because it will, as you will see, it's complex, it's hard, and it's challenging to write about. And I felt almost like they were, I don't know, it felt connected. It felt like they knew my struggles, and that they were giving me a kind of a double sighting, which was really, really neat. And this is the craft up close to just guarantee that this is not a plane, helicopter, a drone, anything like that. It's just this red ball of light that I keep consistently seeing around me writing this book about my contact events with aliens. Yeah. When I first, I'm also, just to make a point of how good I am, how clear I am, and how honest I am, and how I don't like believing in kind of and anything that I can prove to myself is not accurate. At first, when I made the recording, I don't know if you can see this. I thought this was an orb. Can you see these little lights here? Right there. You can follow it. Moves up, goes around. I thought these were, Ian, I mentioned them to you in my email. I was able to replicate this eventually. So there's nothing weird going on. All there is just a UFO. You can see that same thing in these videos here. There's a weird image over top right here. These lights moving around. It's actually something I can replicate with my iPhone. And it seems to be some kind of stabilizer effect while it was happening with the UFO. So for about a week and a bit, I was convinced there was some kind of weird, spooky thing happening over top of my video of my UFO. But there's nothing. So it's just this crazy video of a UFO, and which is still really cool. So yeah, I really like to also make sure I'm not filming or believing in fake things, because the mind can sometimes want to jump to conclusions really fast. So okay, so that was my sighting. Really cool. I had another one. I really love it. I'm very grateful that they do that. Okay, so let's get back to the presentation. So yeah, as some people mentioned, like, oh, it's kind of fascinating how the level of detail. And so there was a couple things that I'm aware of that I knew created this level of detail. So first, I'm just going to talk about memories and how they're created in general, to kind of show my side. When memories are made and stored in the brain, it is the strength of the neural connection that makes a memory. When a memory is retrieved, the brain revisits those neural pathways where the memory was formed. If the memory is repeatedly recalled, then that helps strengthen those neural connections. So I journaled in these, especially in these periods of my life, I was journaling in these periods, especially where we are now. And I draw on those journals in my writing and in these presentations. So I journaled it first and foremost. While I had 4 contact events, it was a very specific period and I was journaling it. While traveling also, which we will see, the rising will force me to travel and kind of abandon my life. I had a lot of free time and therefore reflected a lot of my early life. And also as well, in 2001, I wrote an autobiography detailing my early childhood memories all the way up to the year 1997, specifically because 1997 was such a weird year. I had all these mystical experiences, strange spiritual experiences. So it felt necessary to document it. So I'd really kind of exercise that part of my brain, the neural pathways, as I reflected consistently about those years, and especially the years I was having contact events. So I was documenting my feelings and who I was at the time. The journaling would have created repetition of the recall of the memory, as well it would have organized my ideas, further solidifying these teenage memories. In terms of the contact events, most of my contact events seem to occur outside in nature, which is, I think, a bit unique. When some research I've done, it seems like some people definitely have outside contact events, but a lot of them happen beside people's beds. And I don't have any of those. I have them much later in my adult life, but I don't have them very early in these early years here. I believe this aided my recall, as in most cases, the events happen with distinct visual environments. Visual memories are much more easier to recall from the brain. As well, when I can remember sensations of the environment, like is it daytime or nighttime, or if the weather, and any of those things aided in the recall of those memories. I suspect the beings maybe knew this when they were having all of my contact events happen outside in nature. Since I had well documented my emotional experience in my teenage years, when it came to conducting hypnotic regression, the visual cues of my environment and the memory of who I was helped considerably. So, okay, here's where some of it gets personal. I was very anxious about today, as I mentioned. So this is the first one. A further aid in my recall of these memories comes from a particular skill set developed in my 30s. I have considerable past life awareness. So recall those with aliens. So I mentioned it in my my second video titled "How I Learned Gray Aliens Are the Creators of the Human Body," and I talk about sometimes some of my amateur research, what it looks like when people have alien DNA in them, and sometimes they can have what kind of comes off as out of control psychic experiences, where there may be a portion of their life where they have trouble controlling a psychic power that they have. And this is what I experienced with myself. I had a period of my life out of control past life awareness and I don't mean like, I'm not talking like, oh, I think I feel like I was someone, or I think I feel like I lived in that period. I'm talking flashes of visions and things that I could go into history books and look at and make sure that was accurate and real. And I won't go into it in any detail now, but I'm in history. I'm recorded in history, and I'll talk about it in much detail later. The bottom line was I have tons of visions of someone recorded in history, and I would constantly and continuously be able to refer back to recorded history to see these visions and confirm that they were real. And you can't make up some of the stuff that I had, and it was completely accurate based on what happened in historical records. I will go into greater detail about that later, but what happened when I had that famous past life is it just seemed to spur off all the other past lives. And I'm very aware of my last one, the one before that, the one before that, and the one before that. Some of them in great detail. And of course, there's certain periods in history, and sometimes the memories go further back in several thousands of years. So it's really, and again, this isn't crazy. I mean, it is crazy, but it's personal, and I've been able to prove over and over and over again that these visions are accurate and they're 100% real. But again, there will be a period dedicated to this because the beings are intertwined with this, and I'll show and explain that. So here I am saying I've had plenty of detailed visions of past life memories where I was able to repeatedly prove to myself were real because they contain historical information about different time periods. I have never had an interest in history either. I've never had this knowledge previously. I was a musician. I was an artist. I didn't focus on reading historical books. And again, I mentioned I'll be explaining detail in later. I remember my last four previous past lives, and I can see my personality and consciousness development through these lives. Anyway, again, it's a period, something I'll delve into. Yeah. So though I never conducted regression on my past lives, that's another part of this too. I never studied this. It was just something going on in my background of my life while I was doing my MBA of all things. And I learned the internal cues of seeing and experiencing information from my deep subconscious and knowing what was real and what was my imagination. I can't, until you get there, I can't help you understand that any more than I was able to understand those deeper layers of my subconscious. I got good at recognizing internal cues to know what was real, what my mind was interpreting, and even when my mind was blocking something. My hypnotic regressionist dealing with these alien contact events explicitly said that she was amazed at my ability I could tell when my mind was making things up in my contact events, like, oh, it was filling in gaps because something was incomprehensible to my mind. And I could feel, and I knew that was occurring. And she was amazed that I was able to have that level of understanding about my own imagery, that I could see that I was making up things versus what really was in that craft or what I was experiencing. So recall, and here's the trick of it all. Recalling memories after having your memories erased, like these beings do, is very similar to regaining past life memories. It's the exact same process, and this skill set aided my recall of my experience with these beings. Now, here's the kicker. Remember this holographic timeline from the very first contact event, and of course, I brought this up repeatedly. So she said we're interested in here, and here. And she never explains, the elder says this, and she never explains what this is. Well, only because I've lived out my life and I can reflect, and when I look back at these, I can feel them because anyway, again, it's part of the nuttiness that I can feel these timelines. I know what they are once they're completed. And this is my past life memory. This is the famous person I become aware of in my 30s. And I get nuts. I go crazy about this memory and going into the details. And it's fascinating for me. And again, I'll explain it in a little greater detail. But they were aware. And this is the point of where I would have the awareness of my contact events. So they were very interested in watching me study my past lives. And I'm fully convinced that that's what happened. They were very intrigued. They wanted to study it. They liked observing from the inside. As I've explained in my previous videos, they have me wired up. So they're able to watch me from the inside and watch my thoughts and things. And that's what they clearly did. They had a period of my life where I had this past life nuttiness going on and they wanted to watch it. And so they were very interested in it. And it seems very connected because it helped me with my memories. And of course, I have tons of memories of these beings when I find out in my 40s. So they seem to have done a really good job at sealing it all up, making sure I never had an inkling. And you'll see today with the Rising, my story with the Rising, why that's really important, that I have no knowledge that I have alien contact events while they give me this crazy experience. And then in the age of 40, they kind of say, okay, done. You're ready to have those memories, and they crack everything open. And then I have the ability and the skill set to go back and open up those memories and gain the details from them. So for me, on the inside, it all makes tons of sense. I saw a deep connection, and the beings were highly interested in this part of my skill set, or this part of my life, that I had this past life awareness. Okay, recap. I'll try to make this as brief as I can, so we can get to the fun story. So my story goes like this. I have 5 childhood contact events, 7 before the Rising, 14 after the Rising, and 3 as an adult. The last one was in 2017. You can follow up on my contact events by watching this, by going to the YouTube channel. How as a willing participant of an experiment for Great Aliens is my first contact event. How I learned Great Aliens are the creators of the human body, our contact event number 2 and 3, and how I was spiritually developed by Great Alien technology is contact event number 4 and 5. Today is this experience called the Rising. The Rising was this spiritual thing, this kind of how I describe it is maybe as an energy surge in my consciousness. It was a spiritual attainment or spiritual awareness, but it was suspicious, and I wasn't a monk, or I was 20 years old, a bassist in bands, going to music school every day, and then this experience happens in my life, and it seems to alter and change my life, and forces me to go traveling, and so we'll rip that apart here today. And the beings really seem to build me up in the first 7, which we'll show today, and then the 14 after are just the type of interactions change, and it's kind of fascinating to see the differences. The first contact event, Coquitlam, 1993, 16 years old. Again, there's the holographic timeline. So she pointed to the blue cuboid and said, "This is where we help you." So that's what that's what today is. We're going to end with them helping me. It'll be the end of the blue cuboid section. And this is necessary to understand these lines that she said, because this describes what happens to me today. Then we will help you leave your home, and we would like to watch you as you grow. You will be free from your societal ideas to create what we provide for you. This is your destiny that we will help make happen together. While we help you, you will help us by allowing us to watch you as you grow. I asked, "How will you make me leave?" She said, "You will discover your soul, which will propel you to leave. We will help you create an identity that you will use to do this." The agreement was that they would help me with a transition in my life by helping me find my soul, and then they would get to watch. And I was like, okay, at 16-year-old, eventually, of course, the story outlines that, but I was on board with that. And I was really fascinated, having no idea what it all really meant. And today you'll see what it all really means. And my third contact event that happened in Walnut Grove, October 1996, 19 years old. She explains to me they put their genetics into mother's wombs to put us on a galactic level, kind of this raising of the society. And so she actually explicitly says, we plant our seeds into human mothers' wombs to make the fetuses grow to be like us. We do this to bring humanity to a galactic level so humans can be part of a galactic society. I also understood that the Greys are really just the face of what's kind of happening, and on what about their interactions on Earth. They're kind of the face of it, but there's layers of things going on in the background. And I understood that from the line that I got from her in here. We are called upon by and work with collective spiritual governing bodies to form agreements to create physical bodies for nation-faring planets and dimensional lands, as if this was kind of some overarching role that they play in their society. And then it kind of answers a little bit to some degree what they're doing here. I broke up with Samantha just because I was also living out a real life, not just having alien abductions. Those alien abductions interacted with my real life. Importantly, I broke up with one of my girlfriends at that time, and I was a free man, a free bird. My fourth contact event, importantly, the only thing that's really important to connect here is I lost my job, and but I was free again. It was like no girlfriend, free, just life, and I got to explore my spirituality that seemed to kind of be calling me at the time. My fifth contact event, the only thing that's relevant is that she did energy work on me in preparation for the rising. And there'll be more talk about that again today. It's kind of, she did these grid bars were going through my energy, my body, and she did the spinal work, and it all seems relevant for what happens today. And importantly, I will always remember the summer of 1997 as the best summer of my life, or at least for a good decade. I always reflected as this 19 and 20-year-old summer, the summer of 1997 is this awesome summer, having no idea I was having alien contact events. Okay, so Coquitlam, early September 1997. I was 20 years old. So this contact event happens, as I mentioned, a lot of them are outside. This one happens in Minnetonka Park over in Coquitlam. So this is the park itself, and yeah, pretty straightforward. It's got these two ponds. This is an incline. There's these hills here, these knolls, and there's a lookout that me and my friend Rob were going to, and we were going to go and and basically see the sunset. And this is the reason why when you climb up to the high knoll, you get this awesome view, and it faces west, and so you'd be able to watch the sunset. And that was our determination. So we must have started at maybe 6, maybe something like that, an hour or 2 before the sunset. And so we parked our car on Quarry Road outside the gates, knowing that we would be there after dark, and we hiked in. I don't recall which way we went, but I know at one point we ended up here before we made our way to the high knoll. And then we have a contact event, and it's right about here on our way up to the high knoll. Okay. So, okay, my friend's walking probably about 15, 20 feet in front of me. He's kind of an intense hiker, and I'm behind him. My head's down, and as I'm kind of walking, I'm looking down, and then for whatever reason, I look up, and he's turned, and so he's here, and he's turning, looking that way. He's looking to something has caught his attention, and he's looked and he's turned to it. And as I look up, we're frozen. We're both frozen. And this thing, it was a little bit dark like this. This thing flies out, literally just flies out. It literally is hovering or flying or something. And it goes right up to his face. And I'm like, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit. And then I'm watching what the hell's going on. And I realize whatever it's doing to him, it's going to come and do to me. So I'm like, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. And then it turns and it's flying towards me. And I'm like, ah! And of course, I can't say anything. It's all in my head. And I'm like, ah! And the thing goes up to my eyes and it goes into my brain and it's looking for something. And then there's the sensation of it going, this is the one. And he taps me, and again that sensation of being tapped on the inside of my head, and I'm like, oh my god! I'm like, oh my god! I love these guys. I'm like, the elder. I'm like, right, I love these guys. Oh, awesome. I'm like, okay, and I fully get it. I'm like, okay, yeah, okay. He unfreezes me. So my friend Rob is staying there, and he's looking out, and he's basically like just aimlessly looking out, and he has no movement, and I know to follow this guy. I'm like, okay, and so I follow him, and I turn and I look at my friend Rob, and I'm like, what are we gonna do with him? What's going on? And he's like, and the gray alien, it's a tall gray alien. This guy, he's a tall guy. It's a male, bald head, not large cranium, kind of a smaller cranium head, and but otherwise classic gray with the eyes and everything. And he says, we won't be long. That's it. I'm like, okay. And then I follow him in the bushes. Now my body retains the memory of these locations. So I knew it was this spot, but this was after a long day of hiking through the park, and I couldn't find it. Actually, I had trouble finding it. It's literally just a spot on the path. And so I didn't explore more. I should have. I felt like I would love to have gone into the forest to figure out where this occurred. But I know that there was a craft landed in the forest, and it looked something like this. It was like a pod, and it had this kind of eye shape or teardrop shape, and it was on 4 pegs, and the stairs were down, and there was white light just bleeding out of the hole here, and I followed him in. He just kind of walked in, and we had to crouch down. This doorway was smaller for both of us, and we crouched down, and I got in, and the size was incredibly larger than the tiny pod, it looks like from the outside. There was a cockpit to my right, and I saw a joystick and strange computer panel looking stuff, and I couldn't really make out the walls of the room, but it was all white, kind of the bright white. And then there was this table to the left, and it had some kind of equipment on it. This is my drawing of a hand, or attempt to be a hand. They only have 3 fingers, and he put something on his hand. He kind of banded it to his hand, and he walked over to me, and he's about 2 feet from me, and he's waving it in the air. Now, at the time, I didn't know what was really going on, but I wasn't concerned. But I could feel what he was doing, and I think my intuitive sense is that he was touching something in my electromagnetic field. That there's some kind of bubble that maybe extends out further, that maybe projects itself outwards. I don't know. I don't know anything about energy work. I've never studied energy work or human energies or the body's energy. I don't know these details, but he was doing something on the outside and I could feel it on the inside. It was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. I was like, whoa. And I felt amazing. I was like, oh, wow. And he was doing something on the energy. And I somehow I understood he was collecting or recording, or he was measuring something, as opposed to him doing this. It was like he was measuring, and this was what he was touching. It was creating an effect on me, but he was measuring something, and he was doing this around me. He wanted me to turn around, and he does it in the air behind my back. And then, and this is kind of my understanding from what he did, that there was like some kind of like field around me, and then layers of fields, magnetic fields. Like I feel like these are my magnetic fields. A human body may have these kind of like layers of magnetic fields going around you. And he seemed to touch them, and it seemed to, whoa, I felt amazing. I felt happy, and wow, it was like touching some kind of deep part of my heart. And he's like, you're ready. And that was it. He was like, you're ready. And I was like, okay. And I understood it was about the rising, what's about to happen, because we were building up to it. And he said I was ready, and I was okay, great. That was awesome. And I was like, okay, great. And I just walked out of the craft and went to go back to my friend. And it turns out I look around and he's following me, and I'm like, oh, weird. And then I know to get back to my location, because I, like, it's part of the agreement that my other me is not supposed to know. So I got back to my location. I literally walked back, and then the alien, goes up to my friend Rob. The memory goes blah and just cuts there, and literally it's like it just ends. And what I'm convinced happened is he does something with Rob. I don't really know what he does. I don't know what he does with my friend, and that he puts me into the comatose state. So first it was my friend Rob, and now it's me, and I'm in a comatose state. And I don't know what happens. I don't know if he does something with him. I don't know that. But what I'm pretty certain happens is, in the peripheral of my vision, before we wake up, I see the craft. I'm like looking out in this kind of day state, and I see the craft rising from the fourth floor over here somewhere, kind of rising up and then kind of leaving. And then our brains kind of come back, and it's like that. Just like that in the forest, just like that. It's like, if you weren't recording the time, which we weren't, then it's just a blip in and out. It's like someone opened up reality and then creates an event and then seals it back up, and then you have no knowledge of it. And that's exactly what this was like. We kind of just were like, had no knowledge. I think possibly my friend looked like he was he thought he zoned out for a second, and then that was it. We just hiked up. But the reason I know that this contact event occurs here is because of what happens afterwards. So we make it to the top, and I feel amazing. I'm like, wow, I feel like I'm in love with life. I poured the water all over me. I was like, wow, I'm drinking water. It's like pouring all over me. I love life. I had past life flashbacks, and I talked about my past life experiences. These were the very, very first night I had the past life flashbacks, was here on top of these rocks. And it's that famous past life, and those details were coming in, and I had no knowledge. I wasn't into history, especially in this period of my life. And my friend Rob zoned out, and he was into his candle, and we were both lounging on the rocks and feeling amazing. It seems like, okay, sure, you felt really good, but then the entire week I felt amazing. The entire week I'd wake up every morning. I'd be like, I love life. I'm just so happy. I'm like, feeling amazing. And okay, that doesn't sound too out of place, except when I called Rob the following Saturday. So this was like a week now. He says, hey man, were you feeling like really good all week long? He's like, I felt amazing. He was telling his girlfriend, I can't believe I keep waking up. I feel super excited and happy, and I love life. And we both connected. It originated from Minnetonka Park and our experience of hanging out there. And so that just blazoned itself into my history, and I always remembered that in an event, and of course I recorded it in my journals. So but that was it. It turned out to be an alien contact event. But I also thought this contact event was interesting because it shows a bizarre limitation. Why couldn't this being make me the me that knows them? The me that knows them, or sorry, the other times I interact with them, they make me the me that knows them remotely. And I don't understand why this being couldn't do that. Maybe it had something to do with Rob, or maybe they just, like, I don't know, maybe he didn't know it was me. Like, I just don't understand those details. It's a strange limitation, and I don't understand it. But you'll see like progressively throughout my entire contact events, I get remotely turned on. They kind of know the part of my brain, and they do it remotely before I'm even in the craft. And somehow this guy couldn't do that, or maybe it was something to do with Rob being there, and I don't know, but it was a strange limitation, and I thought that was just really kind of fascinating. So, okay, it's a brief contact event, and so we'll just kind of continue on with the story. But I want to tell part of the personal story, because the personal stuff that's going on around these contact events are related to the story. I wrote out this part, unlike most of the other times where I'm very loose and kind of talking informally. I want to kind of control what I'm saying because it's getting really personal. And of course, I'm a little bit nervous for it to get controversial eventually. So I get very careful about my language here. And yeah, bottom line is, as I started music school, I found myself feeling separate from most of my friends, as I was not able to share my profound feelings and experiences. Out of this lack of connection, I was seeking a hole to fill inside me. I decided it was time to get into a relationship. So I figured I'd had enough space from my last relationship with Samantha, this girl I broke up with, that it was time to seek a new relationship. I was like, yeah, this makes sense. In essence, I made this next move kind of for the wrong reasons. I was bored and I was lonely, and that's really never a good reason to get into a relationship. Presently, in hindsight, as a mature adult, this is not a wise move, but I liked the idea of being close with someone, so I was determined to force a relationship to work. I connected with one of the girls in my extended group of friends. Her name was Leah. I'll say her name was Leah. That's not her real name. And she was easy to talk to, and she explored spirituality, and so did I. So I thought maybe I should be in a relationship with that person. But I wasn't romantically attracted to her. So I said in my 2001 journal, slowly I started hanging out with Leah. At the time, I hadn't made any moves yet, but I was only thinking about making these moves. Yet the first sign that I was doing something wrong was a dream where I found myself walking in the dark. I woke up with the sensation that I was literally blind. I attributed this to my desire to become involved with Leah. A couple of days before the 12th of October, I asked Leah out. The moment we were together, just the idea that I was in a relationship made me feel horrible. I never understood why. It was such a weird period of my life. I began having panic attacks from being in a relationship. And I tried to understand all this. I was trying to figure out my mental problems here. But what happened next can only be described in my journal. The day I asked Leah out to the very next day that I broke up with her, I was having synchronicities with poo. Yes, shit. The day I asked her out, I stepped in some dog's shit. The next day in my driveway, this was my teenager home. The next day in my driveway at my home, only my car was covered in bird shit, hood to trunk, out of 3 tightly packed cars in the driveway. So these birds went over and shat on my car, and I don't even know. I couldn't even visualize what the hell had happened. And in school, it reeked like shit because someone put a diaper in the garbage. And every time I went to the washroom, someone was taking a shit and was making a lot of noises, and it stunk. And I was like, I'm attracting shit. What the hell's going on? And it was disturbing. I was highly disturbed by this strange synchronicity of shit creation. And seriously, attracting shit in life is very weird. So I was highly disturbed by what was going on. I can laugh about this now, but I believe that I am connected to the world. And these were a reflection of something in me that was disturbed, that didn't want to have this relationship happen. Literally a day. By the way, that was a day, right? That was all those things happened in a single day. The moment I asked out Leah, it was such a strange, anyway, clearly some energy within me was disturbed with my choice to be in a relationship, and it manifested out in the real world. Naturally, not understanding what was going on, I kept trying to make the relationship work. So I would break up and then ask her out again. I kept going back and forth with it. The next 2 months were really a mess. I was always super happy when I wasn't going out with her, and was a wreck when I was. I simply wanted to be in love. My soul, or something from the inside, would not allow it. I would have dreams I was in a cage. I'm in a cage trying to get out. What is striking to me presently is at the time I couldn't even be in a relationship, even if it was for the wrong reasons. It was the feeling of trying to put the polar ends of a magnet together. What's obvious to me now is my subconscious knew the plan with the beings. that I was going to leave my life in Coquitlam, and my desire to commit to a relationship was at odds with what I knew was going to occur. So I was having these like strange effects from trying to make a relationship work that was completely at odds with what I knew was going to happen. It should be noted that years later, I eventually apologized to Leah for this mess. Sweetly, she responded that she enjoyed our time together and that she never regretted any of it. So that's just a side story of the real life stuff going on while having these alien contact events. Port Moody, the next contact event. Port Moody, November 1997, 20 years old. So Port Moody, so at this point, we're coming to the end of this period where I'm having these contact events. And this is number 7, right before the rising. All these contact events happened in this area, majority of them anyway. 2 happened in Coquitlam, right by Mundy Park here. 1 happened down south in Langley. Another happened over in across over in Vancouver Island along the beach. I had 1 happen up here in Belcarra, and then the last one you just heard about was over here in Manikato Park. The next one will happen over here in Port Moody. So everything was outside in nature in the areas that I hung out as a 20-year-old and teenager. This is basically what I most likely was doing was coming from some bar, probably 1 or 2 in the morning. Not uncommon. I wasn't drinking or smoking pot or anything in these days. I was a very clean kid in school, actually, and I was often going downtown and watching bands. And I would normally come home this way, coming home along St. John's and then down here. And so I was coming down here, and I know in the memory it was very late at night, 1 or 2 in the morning, and yeah, I would have been coming down here. At some point, I turn, and I'm driving, and somewhere where I'm along here. While driving, I become the me that knows them. And so it's around here, and I'm driving, and I'm repeating to myself, "Grandma's calling, Grandma's calling," because the elder has this motherly feel, and she's older, and in the moment I was calling her grandma, so I was saying, "Grandma's calling, Grandma's calling, Grandma's calling," and I pulled over, and I knew to kind of pull over here on the road. I get out of the car, and I can feel the craft. I'm right about here, and I know the craft is there. I can't see it physically with my eyes, but I know it's there. And I can feel her. I can feel her, and I can feel the craft. And if you recall, she did this once before. She did this in my 3rd contact event where she was held off, and she wanted me to kind of I guess psychically to kind of feel them. Because I can feel them, and I can feel them presently. I can feel them, and I can. So that's what she was kind of exercising. And before I travel, before I kind of need their help, even feeling like they're kind of guardian angels while I'm traveling and having these experiences while I'm out there on the road, she wants me to exercise that this is something that I can do, and I can feel them, especially when I'm maybe in a time of need. So she does that. She holds off, and I just know, so I'm waiting, and I know she's right there. I can also kind of hear like a low hum or something, like a small hummy buzz, and it's kind of just low, and I can hear it, and I'm certain that's the craft. I'm staring, and then the light comes down, and I'm in the craft right away. What I call this the elder's craft, because now when I'm traveling, I'll be repeatedly in some of the same crafts, and I'll be in this craft again more than once. And so this is the elder's craft. This I never see another being here. That's why I also call it hers. It seems like it's just her UFO, and she gets to control it. And so she's here, and I kind of materialize here, and she's here, and there she is. She says, "Hello, Jeff. Goodbye. We'll see each other again, but it will be after you made the change. Your time to rise is here. You've made it to the end of our plan and of your plan with us, and you will be successful. Go on your way and live your life the way you were meant to." And I'm sad. I'm also sad, by the way. And I'm like, oh, like this is amazing. Like, I love this experience. This was an awesome time of my life. I can't believe it. And so anyway, I have sadness in me. And then she hands me this thing so it was on this table, and she hands it over to me. And I never actually touch anything. Another kind of strange feature to this is I never handle anything of theirs ever. And she seemed to want me to handle this. So I took it. And it looked like this. it looked like this, and it had these metal rings going up. There were holes. They were just like clear holes. When I turned it, I could see little globes or little spheres inside. And what's most of all is it wasn't just a physical artifact, but I began to realize the object was something. It was mystical. It contained energy or vibration. When I turned it and held it, it kind of evoked or emoted or communicated a feeling of an association, binding, or grouping. And I could feel it had some kind of it was a consciousness. It itself was alive or something. It emoted something, and it was a consciousness device or something. I don't understand it fully, but I could feel it and I could understand it by holding it. And so that's happened. And then she says, I'm holding it, understanding I can feel these kind of bindings. She says, we belong to a federation of planets. And this symbolizes our grouping. The Federation is grateful for the work you have done with us. At that point, I understood that the rising that was about to occur wasn't just something between me and her, the elder, or me and the Greys as a race, but that other species were aware of it. And that, that the Greys are kind of just the face of it, that they were the ones doing the interactions and interacting with me directly, but really that there was kind of other layers or bureaucracy almost that understood or knew about what was occurring. And I felt great. I felt great pressure, actually. I felt pressure. I was like, whoa, like I kind of understood actually from that point onwards that this was larger than just something the Greys were doing. I have to admit, and I analyzed the crap out of that memory, and it does look like a Star Trek symbol. I don't understand it. I kind of wish that it didn't, but it does. It looks like a Star Trek symbol, and I don't understand why. And maybe I would have thought I've really screwed up my memory here, but it's almost a conspiracy for me that the Trump Space Force also has a crest like this, very similar. And for me, that makes me think there might be a conspiracy, that there actually is awareness about something like this in our higher governments, maybe, and they did that on purpose. I don't know. I don't fully understand it, but that is the memory, and this is exactly what I saw. I know I saw something like this. So while I was holding it, once she said that also, I realized that these metal rings with which I could see globes in were planets. And I could understand that when I turned it, that there were continents, and I could see little atmospheres. Like I could actually kind of see small, tiny details, and there were different sizes also. So there was larger ones and then tinier ones. And I'm not fully certain if they were actually organized, but into bigger and smaller groupings. But there was definitely different sizes going up the side of this object here. I then understood that the holographic spheres were planets, and I could see tiny details such as continents and atmospheres. The Federation object had depth. I could feel plans. I could feel written agreements. I could feel arrangements of planets that worked together. I could feel a recognition of differences too. This wasn't like, I don't know. I could understood that beings on other planets are actually all very different. They have different minds, and maybe to some degree that there's other, maybe even aggressive or just very different beings who humans might term off to be aggressive or bizarre or maybe horrible. And yet there was a recognition of like kind of trying to create unity, trying to create commonality amongst these different species. And that, so it contained a collective unity and values such as acceptance, respect, and kindness for all. I got the impression there was still leadership, hierarchies, and governments, but there was a balance and respect for communities. The feeling was wholesome, yet advanced. And if I went by the number of planets that I saw on this object, it looked to me like there were 30, and be somewhere in between 30 and 40 planets within our galaxy. And then maybe that was another part of it too. I understood this was galactic. I don't know. I didn't pick up any other feeling, but maybe I didn't understand that fully. I don't know. I didn't pick it up. But at the time, as I'm writing this, I'm realizing I thought this was galactic. It was planets within our galaxy, and that there were 30 to 40 planets with intelligent, advanced life within our own galaxy alone, that these beings at least interact with or involved with in some way. As I focused on individual planets, I could feel individual agreements. I could glimpse different agendas and different desires. I got it. I understood that the agreements worked as a binding to bring peace and sense of unity. There was regardless for how, it's basically like a jungle. Like a lion is still a part of the jungle, and even though it eats gazelles, there was still a sense of trying to create a jungle, trying to create a global or a unity, a sense of togetherness, even though you might have varying different types of species that maybe don't look like they go together, but actually can try to work together in some kind of form. The specifics eluded my comprehension. It was also clear that these beings literally write out their agreements like lawyers or lawmakers do on our planet. When I looked at the gem at the top, it shimmered and it seemed intelligent. It kind of like looked at me and communicated in some weird way. It communicated a high command over the Federation. I got this understanding that there was some kind of control, and it seemed like artificial intelligence. It seemed like there was some kind of artificial intelligence that was in control of a lot of this stuff. And yeah, I was blown away. She also says, while I'm staring at it, we hope one day you all on Earth will fit into this. That is what we are trying to make happen. We want Earth to join our Federation, yet it is a slow moving and intuitive process. And of course, again, I feel that pressure. For me, I'm hearing all this stuff, obviously it's going into my psyche, and I'm feeling pressure because I want to make sure my role as making this rising happen, but apparently all these beings are aware of now, is important. Like I feel the pressure as a 20-year-old. I want to make this work. So I'm so grateful. I just want it to work out well. And she says, it does. The plans have been written, and this is the way it moves. And then for a moment, I'm like, do I get to keep this? I'm like, I get to, maybe I get to hold a souvenir, not realizing maybe how crazy that would be in real life. So I'm like, okay. And she says, give it back. And so I hand it back to her. She puts me in front of her. She kind of like holds me, or like puts my arms, grabs me by the arm, not grabs me, but centers me with her. And then she looks up at me. And then this thing comes out of her eye. This on her right side of her eye, it's this kind of like vortex pulls out of her eye, and it's spinning slightly, and it's shimmering light in the center. And she's kind of like bringing our minds together. I can feel that she's going deeper into my head. She's going deeper into, like, maybe this was for subconscious, or trying to go into the subconscious of my mind. But we're close too. I can feel her, and I'm actually very at peace from this process as I'm like going into this hypnotic thing. And she says, we need this from you. So I see an image. So it's everything that happens that's coming out of this eye are all images, and it's all going into my head and kind of deeper parts of my brain. I can feel it. I see an image of my testicles, and I see an image, and I understand semen. And I see a row of beings in sacs or eggs that needed to be fertilized. And I felt a merging of bonding or genetics. And I could feel this merging of genetics was a mathematical, biological, and spiritual event for the elder. It was something that she saw as sacred. She actually saw it as a sacred event. Merging genetics was for her a sacred event, and it created life. And they recognized the kind of the beauty or the power of that. I also felt love, caring, and compassion in the request. It wasn't something that she was forcing or trying to hypnotic me so I couldn't resist. It was something that she was basically saying, we need this from you, like kind of compassionately, we need this from you. It also felt very medical and devoid of sexuality, because there's no sense of sex from this being. It was a medical procedure. And I got it. I was like, combined. So by also bringing up the Federation request or the Federation before this request, combined the request with an urgency of galactic importance. Now I felt that pressure. Then I also realized, wait, so that's also really important to these kind of higher level beings. So like this was necessary, and I had to make this sacrifice. I was responsible to make this decision. I also felt at the time it was a lasting way of helping the Federation. So I also knew that this request was regarding the next phase of our journey, but not today. Honestly, I don't know how I knew that, but I knew I wasn't going to be doing anything with my semen today. But it was like she was kind of telling me that the next phase of my journey they will need my semen. And then there was a command, message or command for the present. It was like that was done, still spinning, still going. Then it was like the present moment. And the request or the command was to withhold my semen presently, as in stop all sexual activity. I then saw an image of the energy in my spine rising and my heart and head becoming illuminated. I could feel the me from the white room would become embodied and realized. This was the outline of how the rising would occur in my body. It would be created from stopping sexual activity, allowing my energy to rise. This process of connecting with the elder was mystical, and I felt great peace from the vision. Our closeness allowed me to feel her presence and her age. She would be equivalent to our 70 years old. She's like me interacting with a 70-year-old is what it was. And I witnessed a peaceful moment as I saw an image of the elder sitting outdoors at a table. It was like, this was the last thing she gave me. And this whole thing was her just sitting. It was almost like a picnic table or something. And it was like outside. It was like a peaceful moment. She wasn't doing anything. She wasn't even thinking. She was just existing. This is this like, and this was the moment I was like staring in this space and she was just existing in this image. Her old age gave me the feeling that she was content to just exist. Like she didn't need to think. She didn't need to do things. Though she obviously had a role in her society, but there was this idea that like one of her favorite things to do was to sit and do nothing, to just exist, a sense of being. That's what it was. It was, I know there's a Buddhist concept like that. And in my Vedic concept, it's like that too, where there's a being state where you just exist and you don't try to think. And I really sometimes feel these beings are Buddhist by nature. They actually really understand those kind of deep principles of just existing and not having to convolute our minds with thinking a lot. That was it. That ended. It was all done. And that was the last instruction of the era. There wasn't even a goodbye. It was like, boom, done. I was sad. I was like, oh my God. Like, honestly, I was sad. I was like, listen, I'd grown on these ships. That's the thing. I'd grown on the ships. I'd grown on the ships and I'd grown in my life at that time. So I was like, and as much as I was feeling, I was losing kind of contact with my friends and feeling like I was kind of needing to separate a little bit. I loved my life. I was a musician. I loved that these beings were interacting with me and growing me spiritually as I was living out my 20-year-old life. And I was sad. I was sad for it to end. And that was it. I was sad. There was nothing else. It was done. And then I was fired down. I'm back outside. I look up and there's no craft. I can feel there's no craft anymore. It's like she's moved away. And I go back to the car and I'm sad. And I pull a Yui here and drive back and head up my way, and then my mind's gone, or the memory's taken out. So the dream, for anyone who doubts that I'm having these experiences, which I appreciate, I don't think anyone is here. In 1997, I dreamt of that tunnel. Now, what I didn't know is it's actually a documented procedure, an alien procedure. Looking into the eye and having a vortex come out, blue, shining light. I dreamt about a goddamn alien procedure in 1997. And that's like, hands down, it's insane. Now, it wasn't an alien in this, and never have I dreamt about an alien, funny enough. Even when I know I'm dreaming about these events, it's always a woman, like kind of a superimposed, like my mind can't comprehend the alien, so it superimposes it with a person. In the dream, it was actually a girl who taught me energy work. Funny enough, it was a spiritual girl, and one of these girls who I was friends with in Coquitlam days, and her eye was turning with this blue vortex. The dream was highly mystical, and I never ever understood what the dream was, and I couldn't interpret it. It was like interpretless. Turns out it was an actual alien procedure that I had witnessed, and so it left this dream. While linked with the elder in the vortex, she gave me two commands. I want to talk about them a little bit. One was to withhold my semen, that is, and stop all sexual activity. So the truth is about this era, I started having dreams of asexuality, where I don't know how to explain it. The reality is what I know about the white room, the experience I had in when I was 16 years old. The white room was when I collapsed into this orb energy thing. It was an experience of rising above gender. That's what that experience is. It was a rising above. My spirit energy was so intense. I was rising above gender, which I think is actually very Zeta, very gray. Very gray aliens are they're above their gender, and this kind of, they have no sense of sexuality, and so I was having those kind of images kind of come to me at the time. And then secondly, they were going to need my semen. So yeah, they wanted me to have. Oh yeah, these beings are specifically what I feel from this request when she's asking me for my semen is a couple of things I want to talk about here, which is, for me, these beings have no sexuality. In the third contact event, I talk about how it seems to me that the beings are detached from their bodies. They are spirit beings. They recognize their spiritual center, and then they're very okay moving their bodies and moving their spirits into other bodies, and they have a detached kind of attitude towards their bodies. And I think they think of us that way. Yet humans are highly attached to their bodies. We live our entire lives thinking we are our bodies and treating the spirit as an afterthought. And so it seems to me that when they start requesting or making these requests that are about our physical bodies, it maybe puts those two things into conflict. So I know this because of some previous experiences, but they think of me as my body as a plant. They kind of think of bodies like plants. They think of them like aspects of nature. And for a human to sexualize the process of these beings needing semen would be like us sexualizing picking apples from a fruit tree. It's the same thing. For them, we pick an apple. It is just a plant. And they think that way about us. They're taking seeds. They literally think they're taking seeds. And the body is just this. It's a tube. It's nature, though. It's, for them, it's nature. It's an aspect of nature. And so I'm very aware that's how they saw that process. So because there will be semen extractions, and that's where the story, in the next chapter of this story, that's where it goes. And lastly, the Federation. I thought that was really powerful. Also, I'm certain I got talked about a Federation because I am shown, literally other species who she says or they say are from the Federation. So I'm convinced that this is real, that the Greys are interacting with these other races that they consider as part of a grouping, that they work together, and that they kind of try to get shared agreements out of with each other. And so it seems to me that the work we were doing had more and more layers of complexity, and they revealed this information to me slowly. Yet most profound, they want us humans to belong to this Federation. And I thought that was really telling. However that occurs and what the methods are, I think is maybe up for understanding. But for me, it seems like that's where they're going with this, where they want us to kind of belong to a higher, to the group, to whatever this larger Federation group is. There was an impression that they were waiting patiently for us to catch up. Okay. 7:10. I think we're doing good. I get nervous a little bit that this part of the story is going to take a little bit longer. I appreciate 100% everybody paying attention and everybody watching. Yeah. Thank you.